Premed Office Hours, episode 197. 197. 198. 199. 200.
200.
Scott, you know what it's like to be 200. What should we do to celebrate 200?
Well, don't put 200 candles on the cake. I can tell you that.
might set off the sprinklers.
Right.
We don't want to do that. We definitely don't want to do that. Dr. Scott Wright, former director of admissions at UT Southwestern, retired executive director at TMDAS, soon to be chaplain extraordinaire. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very good. Thank you.
Show your shirt there. Best chaplain ever. Awesome.
Ew.
Reverend Dr. Scott Wright joining us on the Premed Years to not only help you write your essays, but pray for your application as well. That's what we do here. Full service at medical school headquarters. Why not go for it all? Oh, man. Yeah. Dr. Wright, it's application season.
Yes.
Students are in the thick of it right now. What is one word of wisdom as we start off here for them to take a breath and hopefully take a breather, calm down?
One word of wisdom: you do not have to submit on the first day it opens.
Do not.
That's a word of wisdom. Chill out, and as long as you get it, in May or June, you're fine. You're really fine. I guarantee you'll be fine.
Promise. I mean, guarantee you'll be fine based on when you submitted. Your application still may be trash.
Correct. Exactly. That's
hopefully
what
not.
Yeah.
But in terms of the timing of your application,
yes.
Oh man. All right. Courtney Lewis, former director of admission at Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I need Scott to pray for the advisors as well while he's at it.
The advisors are in the thick of it right now.
Yeah.
Going crazy. Pray for everyone. We load up on our beauty sleep the rest of the year, and whatever. We do it. We get it done. One word of wisdom for you, Miss Courtney Lewis.
Proofread before submission.
Please. Grammarly, please.
Yeah.
A lot of students are worried that Grammarly kind of spouts a lot of AI features now.
Yeah.
A lot of students are worried that, is their application going to be flagged by some AI detector if a school chooses to use something like that, if they use Grammarly? And I'm like, just don't use any of the crazy features that are rewriting your essay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it mainly for grammar, spelling, punctuation, right? It's just to make sure it's super polished. Look at the PDF version of your application before it goes in to make sure you don't have any special characters that are erroring out or something didn't get cut off because of character count when you copied it over. Just make it clean. Get it clean. Yeah.
Yep. Love it. All right. And if you don't know who I am, that is okay. I do not take it personally. It's Gray with an A. I'm the founder of Medical School Headquarters. I've written some books, do some podcasts, all that kind of good stuff. But most importantly, I get to hang out with these smart people every day. So let's answer some questions, friends. If you want to ask over at premed.tv, that's where we're hanging out and answering questions. First one here. My physician is asking, what should he emphasize in his LOR? What should I tell him? Any specific competencies that physicians could talk better about, I'm assuming is what that meant. Courtney, the AAMC has the letter writer guidelines. That's something that we give out to letter writers if students are using my LORs.
Yeah.
Anything specific? This is a unique-ish question. Anything specific about a physician writing a letter that maybe a science professor may not be able to talk about?
Yeah, I think genuinely just talking about the experience with you, about any back and forth as far as questions or if they had you do anything extra. I mean, the stronger letters are going to be those that speak to just your time together instead of saying, like, I looked over their resume and it was excellent. You really want them to, did you show up on time? Were you being polite to everybody there and respectful of timing? Were you asking thoughtful questions? Did you have a good attitude? Things like that. Depending on how long you spent with them, those can go a long way with the time that you have there.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Good letters are important. Make sure you do it. All right. A couple MCAT timing questions. Samuel asks, am I at a big disadvantage taking my MCAT on June 14th? Unfortunately, I registered too late trying to get May 24th slot. June 14th, Scott, their scores back theoretically July 14th, a month later. Big issue, not big issue?
No. I mean, what I would say is have everything else done, have your transcripts at MCAS, have your, obviously submitted, so you're in the queue for processing, letters of recommendation, so that everything is in and done, that all they're waiting for is that MCAT score, and they get it really fast after it's released, the score is. And so I don't think you need to worry, Samuel. I think that it's a little bit of a delay, but it's in my mind, I don't think that's a big issue at all.
Nice. Got it. Ari says, just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Gray and team. I've been watching videos for the last 3 years, applied for the first time, was accepted last week with a lower than 495 MCAT. Congrats,
Awesome.
Ari. Definitely the outlier. We do not recommend anyone trying to do that, but you did it. Good job. Congratulations.
Woo.
That's awesome. Scott, I'm going to stay with you on this one for a TMDAS question. Andres here. Any tips on how to write the new TMDAS personal characteristics essay? I'm not sure how to approach the, quote, enrich the educational experience of others part of the question. Well, so Scott, this isn't a new question. They tweaked the prompt a little bit. But the educational experience of others has been in there, and I love that question because of it. The one difference is that it's a longer character count now. You get 5,000 characters instead of 2,500. What are your recommendations for this prompt? And this is the required prompt, right?
I don't know why that just went there, but anyway. Yeah, this is a required prompt. And I think that there's so much blowback on diversity, equity, and inclusion around the country, certainly in Texas. The governor has basically eliminated all of that from every campus that's state supported in Texas and everything. So I think the genesis of them wanting to have this as a longer essay is in response to that. It really is an opportunity for the student to tell what about their experiences, what about their them as a person, their qualities will enrich the educational environment for other people. And it's really a somewhat, it's not an incredibly specific prompt. So it leaves you open to be able to discuss a lot of different things. I see a lot of students who are immigrants discuss their immigrant experience and what that was like for them and how they overcame that, and how by virtue of the diligence and the persistence and the resilience that they showed in that process, that they will bring something to the class that will really enhance the educational environment for everyone. I've seen people talk about their TA experiences in undergrad. So it's really you really have the ability, Andres, to talk about anything that you want to talk about that you feel like is going to be a really a thing that will be in the class, the medical school class, that will be beneficial to everyone involved. And I think that's a very good question. And I suspect they're going to get a lot of still 2,500 ish character essays, just because I think people have already written them and they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to submit the one, which I think is totally fine.
It's okay.
They're going to totally understand that
Yeah.
it was a last minute kind of change. And but hopefully that helps a little bit, Andres, in terms of getting a little bit of a notion of what to write. But I think it's pretty broad, and you can write about a lot of different things about yourself. It could be things that you've overcome. It could be qualities that you have that have been noticed by others, that have, maybe you got an award for being the most humanitarian person in your city or whatever. And you can talk about that or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, the blowback kind of across a lot of states with DEI stuff. And I have always considered this essay a diversity essay. Is what
Absolutely.
diversity do you bring to the class? It's going to enhance the class.
Yeah.
So I like they're tweaking it to appease whoever they need to appease. Made it longer, maybe as a thumb to the guy to be like, oh, we're going to let them talk more about it. Courtney, anything to add? I know diversity is a big topic for you as well. Oh, you're muted. Unmute. Courtney, you are muted. Hi there.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. I like that they made it longer. I think this is a topic where it allows you to really give a more global perspective of yourself and your lived experience outside of just the personal statement prompt that's hyper specific. So I would encourage you to actually, share some of these details about your life and what value, like Scott said, you feel like you can add to the class, or that you want to kind of explore within that, or just your lived experience. So I think that upping it to 5,000 characters was a good move, and the AdCom will get a much more global perspective of the applicant because of it.
Yeah.
Let me add one more thing to that. I think that I usually encourage students, if at all possible, do not talk about an academic experience. Get outside of the bubble of your campus and talk about yourself in another context, with family, with friends, with organizations that you work with or whatever. It's like Courtney said, just your lived experiences, but get outside of the bubble of academics and don't talk about talk about something else. I think that's much more valuable. Now, if you really got a good one for academics, of course you can talk about that, but I think it's better to think bigger than that.
Yeah. I like the essay. One way that I try to explain to the students is, specifically for this essay, is a lot of students always want to write, look, me, right? I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. But this is, here's me and how I can help we together. So it's an easy way to say, I can still talk about my strengths, but how am I bringing it to the class? And unfortunately, when I give feedback on this essay, it's almost always they're missing this class part, right? How are you going to enrich the educational experience of others? And one other clarifying point, because this is often a mistake that students make when writing this essay, is they skip to taking care of patients and how are they going to better take care of patients, when the question is really your classmates. How are you going to enrich your classmates and be a good part of that community, not a future physician? So, all right. Awesome discussion with that one. I love that question. Courtney, an ACOMAS question for you. With the fee waiver for ACOMAS requiring you to apply within 2 weeks of being approved, should I wait until my MCAT score comes back to apply for, I'm assuming, the fee waiver? How long does it take to get approved? Do you know a little bit about that process?
I don't know. I mean, year to year, like the funds are different. I'm not sure about the timing, but you don't have to have your final MCAT score to be able to submit your application. You do have to tie your ACOMAS ID to that, so that when the score comes in, it goes onto your application. But you can click submit with an outstanding official score. So I would just do that. If the rest of your application is polished, ready to go, send it in for verification. If it goes out to a school before your MCAT score is out, I'm doubting it will, because it's going to take probably about 4 to 6 weeks to get verified, at which point you would have your MCAT score back. Then, but I wouldn't miss out on the fee waiver. It's such a big thing and it can help so much. It's so valuable that I would lean taking advantage of that and then just letting the MCAT attach.
Yeah. So the big difference with the fee waiver for a COMIS versus AMCAS, a COMIS does have a set kind of budget or funds set aside, and it's really first come, first serve, whoever qualifies for it. And if the money runs out, then you don't get access to it. Whereas the AAMC, it's unlimited. Anyone who qualifies can get it, but you have to qualify for it. So a little bit of a difference there. And as Jacob mentioned here, the COMIS fee waiver, you do need to submit your application within 2 weeks of getting that fee waiver approved. So yeah, lots of nuance there. Good question, Jacob. Good luck. All right. Kachi, in a little bit of a struggle here. Graduated 3.5 cum, 3.0 science GPA. I tried doing a do-it-yourself post-bacc, didn't do great. Cumulative GPA went down to a 3.2. Science GPA went down to a 2.94. Should I do an official post-bacc? Courtney, I'm going to go back to you on this one. Is there any difference between a do-it-yourself post-bacc and an official post-bacc in terms of anything that the med school cares about, and potentially what's bigger here?
Yeah, I do think that a formality can present. Not every post-bacc or special master's program is created equally, I would say. So it depends on what you're looking for and matching kind of what need needs to be addressed to pick the post-bacc that's most appropriate for you. But in this situation, I would advise you to take an official program, just because you're going to need a full course load and a strong upward trend to be able to kind of mitigate the damage done with how you were doing it yourself and maybe taking one class here or 2 classes. You're going to need a full course load pretty much at this point of either coursework that mimics the first year of med school, or that's going to help you with the foundational science prerequisites, if that's where you're kind of dropping off. But I think in this case, with how significantly it's dropped, you will need something more formal. That would be my take.
Yeah, and before you do that, do some deep soul searching. What's going on?
Yep.
Yeah, is there some sort of undiagnosed learning differences here that are going on that you need some different techniques, medicine, whatever, I don't know. But you definitely have dug yourself a hole that it's not impossible to get out of, but will cost unfortunately some money based on our lovely educational system. So
it's going to take some time.
Yeah, take some time. Go for it. Wyatt here. Hello, thank you all for what you do. Applying to a COMIS this year. How quick of a submission should I aim for? Trying ASAP, but around 1 to 2 weeks. Will that be okay? Courtney, big thumbs up there. I'm kind of mad at a COMIS and the DO schools for what they did last year with basically saying submit immediately and we'll start sending you secondaries immediately. And and so it's just the pre-meds being pre-meds, and I understand. I was once one of them. Like, they're freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, if it's opened already, then am I late? And when students, Scott, you kind of led with this. If students are thinking, if I don't apply the first day, then I'm late. And now a COMIS is here. You can apply the first day. They're the only application service you can do that. TMDAS, you could do that. Yeah, 2 weeks. I mean, my general thing is I tell people just treat it like AMCAS. If you want to submit AMCAS June 15th, great. Submit a COMIS then. Any issues with that advice, Courtney? Anything you would add?
No, but have noticed that a lot of DO schools are now attaching additional secondary questions onto the primary application, which could potentially add on some time ahead of submission. So make sure that you have selected those schools so you know if you have to fill out prompts ahead of submission for your primary application, because now a lot of schools have attached them. So as far as timing, yes, you're fine within that sphere. It's a much shorter verification period, things like that. So 1 to 2 weeks is just a negligible amount of time, I would say.
Yeah. And for those schools that are kind of attaching the secondaries as part of the primary, that's been a part of a COMIS for a while, but not many schools have used it. And as you're saying, more schools are using it. The easy thing to do is just take those schools off of your list, submit your application with at least one school that doesn't have those secondaries built in, and then go and work on those secondaries, add the schools, and submit at a later date. So it's all games. It's all fun and games, I suppose.
Strategy.
Strategic. Yes, that's all it is. It's all strategy.
Yeah. It's all strategy.
All right.
Or as George Bush used to say, strategery.
That's what I just said. Did you not hear me?
Oh, did you? I didn't hear you say that. I'm sorry.
That's a good word. Javraj, would it be wise to include a wood art making job around 300 hours as one of my most meaningful experiences? The other two most meaningful are clinical experiences. Scott, what is the art and science, the strategery as it may be, behind picking most meaningful experiences?
I think, well, I have two sort of both sides of the coin kind of perspectives here. One perspective is that I think that you have to be just honest with yourself, authentically think about what's been most meaningful to me, and that's what you put on there. Now, having said that, the other side of the coin is you have to understand that the medical schools are looking at this, and they're making assumptions, and they don't know you other than what is in your application, and so they're trying to understand who you are and what you're all about and stuff like that. I think in your case, Javraj, I think with having two clinical experiences is most meaningful, and then the other one you're thinking about the wood art making job. I think that's fine. I had a student recently who didn't have any clinical stuff as one of his most meaningful. I think that was a mistake. I asked him to rethink that, and he did. And so I do think you have to sort of walk a fine line there. Choose the ones that have indeed been most meaningful, but also on the other hand, think about how this is going to be viewed by the schools. And so it is a bit of a balancing act there. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. It does. All right. TMDAS character limit for activities changed to 500. That was last year. It changed to 500. But I still find it hard to fit in good stories within the 500 characters. How should I go about this without sounding like I'm listing job duties? Courtney, this has always been kind of I don't know, this double-edged sword of my books and videos and advice for activities is stories everywhere there's stories. And I'm like, calm down. Not everything needs a story, and we need room for reflection. We need some understanding, potentially some context. It's almost always been impossible for TMDAS with 300 characters. I've seen some decent small little anecdotes in 500 characters with the new setup. What advice do you have for students with this new 500 character limit on TMDAS as of last year?
Yeah, I mean, probably 2 additional sentences. So it isn't really a huge increase, but as much insight as you can give me into the takeaway, impact, value add, what you made of the time there and things, that's probably helpful because that's what is uniquely you. Like if you're scribing, I know what a scribe does. You can lay out some of that, but I don't need like an in-depth using 5 of your sentences for that. So maybe lean a little bit more towards the reflections. But if you're finding it hard to fit in stories, then maybe a story isn't the best option for you for that experience. So I think don't force something and make it awkward and then just put a line, because the evaluator is going to feel the same way. They're going to look at it and say, why is this here? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Man, they're really trying to force a story in here and it feels weird and awkward. Yeah. If you're reading 30,000 applications, at some point you get really used to kind of a cadence, and yeah, it feels weird to have that there. So just do what you can.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference too between a story and an anecdote. I think anecdotes, if you just think about it just a little bit differently, you can focus on something that happened without, I walked into the dimly lit room and there were buzzes going and sounds and like you don't need all that stuff.
Right. I stole Scott's thing of the what and the so what when I'm talking to TMDAS students, right? Those are the 2 questions that are, think about those when you're trying to cover your bases for the activities.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Quick answer here. When do I sign up for Casper? Sign up now. It's open as of April. So yeah, go take it June-ish. It's fine. A couple other questions here. Courtney, I don't know if you know this one. Should we put family info as asked in a COMIS or not? What is the reason to put or not? I didn't know that kind of stuff was optional. Is that optional?
No, I don't think so. The reason it's on every application. It's part of kind of your background and biographical profile that they have. So
and a lot
like
of that's
this,
data gathering, right? For just the application services.
That, and it gives some context of, how many people were in the household, kind of growing up, being able to see the educational level of your parents. Like, is it actually going to come into play when we're looking at things? No, but it helps us create, it adds another piece to the puzzle, right? Just being able to glance over that information and get a perspective of home life and upbringing. So it doesn't do any damage. It's just to help us have that little bit of perspective. So yes, it's on every application system. All 3 of them ask for it. So there's no harm being done there.
Yeah. The only place where I see it kind of comes in optional is family income on AMCAS. Often students will put do not know instead of answering that question.
That's fine.
Another question here from Justin. Does having a low kind of going back to parents and upbringing and stuff, does having a low socioeconomic status become heavily factored in admissions decisions? Hopefully bonus points if we've tailored our app to mentoring and volunteering with the underserved and research. Scott, Justin seems like potentially trying to play a little game here, trying to craft an application to get bonus points. Right? Thoughts on Justin's question?
So I would say that if a student has a low socioeconomic status, it is a part of the way that admissions committees review the application, and it's kind of like what Courtney was just saying. It just adds perspective to that consideration. I would not say that it necessarily becomes heavily, and heavily is probably not the best word to use there. I don't think it's a heavily factored in the admissions decisions. And to the point of the other part of the question, tailoring your application to that sort of thing, that makes me a little bit nervous because a lot of times admissions committee members who are often very savvy can see right through that kind of stuff. If you're tailoring something to make them think a certain thing or behave a certain way as an admissions committee member, that they'll see right through that. So I think that you want to temper that. It's fine to sort of have maybe a little bit of an agenda when you're kind of going through your application and sort of wanting to put forward certain things, but don't go too far with that because it can be a downer.
Yeah, I love the what Dr. Layla Amiri said once in a podcast episode I did with her is feedback from one of her interviewers talking about a student, and the interviewer said, I don't know who the student is, I just know who they think I want them to be.
Yeah, bingo.
And that authentic kind of your personal self, your authentic self doesn't come through.
Right.
And it's hard, right? The three of us are here saying this, and I think students hear it, but they don't believe it. They think they have to have a certain GPA, they have to have certain activities, they have to do this, they have to do that. And then we're sitting there going, there's no checklist. Obviously, you have to be academically capable, but you are viewed holistically, and looking at you as a person and who are you. And students are like, yeah, that's baloney. I just need perfect stats and perfect activities and perfect hours, and I'll be good.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, I mean, there is some required experience and exposures that the med schools do want to see in hopes that those exposures and experiences will help you confirm that this is the path that you want to go down, and also give you chances to interface with populations different from self, gain perspective of kind of what life looks like for somebody else since you're going into a service industry. So there are some requirements, but I keep telling my students, right, at a certain threshold, since a lot of what AdCom is at the very beginning is risk assessment, right? But if they have a comfort zone, I would say. So let's say their comfort zone is like anybody 3.6 science and above, dump them in a pile. Anybody 509 and above, we're not concerned. And that range goes from 509 all the way up to 528. So you're not an academic risk, but if you're trying to play a game, once you get dumped in that pool, there's still thousands of candidates who are low risk that you're gonna be up against. And so if you're really trying to, I guess, get through that system, again, personally, I've gone through 30,000 plus applications in my career. It's just easy to see. And when you get to the interview, most of the time when you've done this, you treat the interview like an oral exam instead of a chance to kind of interface and show your personal skills and let them get to know you. So it becomes a little bit odd, and it's really easy to see. And so I don't know. It can be helpful to have somewhat of a narrative or a through line. It can be helpful to do some of these things. And some schools may be attracted to the fact that you've worked with underrepresented and underserved communities, since that's where they are interfacing with their community. So yes, it can be helpful. But if you make it your whole thing and it was just for trying to appease them, it will be very easy to spot as you continue through the evaluatory process.
Yeah. As soon as that interviewer says, "Oh, tell me about this experience that you had working with underserved kids," and you're just like, "Oh yeah, I did that," right?
Well,
your passion immediately is seen or not seen.
Yeah, usually it comes to, they get asked about it and then they say, I think, we need to have more free mobile clinics and stuff like that. And an interviewer will come back, okay, how do you fund that? Where do you get the resources? Why do you think that's the option? Don't you need to get paid to be able to pay your staff and things like that? And there's no depth there because they've just been going and checking in and checking out. So not saying that's
Justin
you,
says
but
he's not trying to play the game, just
right.
poorly worded. Yeah. And we're not calling you out. We're just saying, hey, this is an issue we see.
Yep.
So, all right. Good questions. Keep them coming. Javraj back. Are 20 hours as a middle school English teaching assistant for immigrant children too little to put on my application? I've written good stories from the experience, approved by Dina Golini, one of our medical school HQ advisors, expert advisors. What's too little?
Why are we re-asking?
What's too little? Well, the story is good. Now they're worried about the hours.
Oh, no.
No, it's not too little.
It's not.
No. It's more about what you say. I think students often get caught up in the number part of it. It's really more about what you say about it in the narrative that's vastly more important than the number of hours.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll look at the number of hours and they're going to notice that and stuff like that, but it's all about the depth of what you're saying about it. To me, I mean, I think that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. And it's all, nothing is in a vacuum, right, Courtney? It's like, okay, that's 20 hours. Awesome. I like your description. It's good. But if it was 20 hours and that's the only thing you did for 2 years, then it's like, okay, that's a little weird.
Yep.
Or 20 hours. What do you think, Courtney, of 20 hours as a most meaningful?
I don't know. I mean, it's up to the applicant to pick that. I don't want to say just because something was only 20 hours, it wasn't valuable and it didn't have a change on your perspective, or that exposure couldn't have been something kind of pivotal for you to have. So I'm not necessarily too concerned with the hours. If that's what you're picking to include or even prioritize, great. Tell me why. I'm more concerned with the why. So, I mean, when you're talking about like a COMIS and TMDAS, this is just another experience. Put it in there, right? You want to be as thorough as possible. But if it's 20 hours and we're talking about limited to 15, you have to pick and choose. And if you feel like this adds value, put it on there.
Yes, he is. All right. LORs, June 30th, too late for submission? Nah. Most pre-health committees don't get letters in until like mid-August.
Yeah.
No worries. Go for it. All right. Keep them coming. It's an interesting question from Samuel. For two people that know me in a similar environment, should I choose one or get them to collaborate on the same letter? So this comes up usually when there's a difference in title. Scott, if in a clinical setting, it's potentially a nurse that knows the student more, but obviously the doctor letter is typically a little more weighted. Sometimes we'll see some co-signing there, or if it's like a TA knows the student and potentially writes a letter for a professor. What are some options here for the students?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think you get it, if they're in the same clinic or in the same, course or the same lab, then I think try to get them to collaborate together so that often what you'll find is that the person that knows you best, let's say the charge nurse, will write the letter because they know you better. And then the doctor will look it over and say, yeah, that sounds cool. And they'll both sign it. What if you have this dilemma, Samuel, I would say, try about that. And I usually ask the student, do they know each other? Do the people that you're talking about know each other? Okay. That's the first step. Do they like each other? That's the next step. And then the next step is, do you think you could go to them and ask them if they would be willing to co-write this letter, to co-sign it together? And I think it's a really good option for if you're concerned if it's a postdoc in the lab or if it's a lab assistant or some lower person in the lab, and you want the PI to but they don't know you as well. So that this is a good option, I think, for often for that kind of situation. So, and it kind of goes across many different environments, many different types of atmospheres. So I think it's a good option.
Yeah. Awesome. Andrew has a question here. In my personal statement, I talk about my acne and about treatment not working, feeling uncomfortable having my skin viewed by the nurses. Could this be considered speaking negatively about healthcare providers? So it's one of the kind of things that I warn students about is you don't want to be trying to enter a career by talking bad about everyone in it and going, I'm the savior. I'm the only one that can do better, and I'm going to show them.
Well,
this seems a little different here, Courtney.
There's a follow-up too.
Oh, there's a follow-up. Oh, and on a positive note about this. So screw the nurses. Doctors are the best.
This will not go over well at all.
So Courtney, pause for 2 seconds. A lot of people don't know that nurses may be part of the admissions committee reviewing, or not maybe the admissions committee, but as reviewers of applications.
Yeah. Or PAs,
I mean, you're going to be rotating in hospitals and people's private practices and things like that, 3rd and 4th year, where you are interfacing with other healthcare providers. Or like we used to do like multi-step, like tiered responses where we'd take a high fidelity mannequin and you would go out with the nursing students and the paramedics and kind of work together to triage. So, this is not a good route to go. It does sound very negative towards another profession. I don't need to know why you don't want to be something else. I need to know what about being a physician is drawing you, and just leave out that other stuff. Doesn't mean that you can't say this was a really hard time for you or that it was uncomfortable for people to look at it, and that your dermatologist made you feel, kind of comfortable in that sphere, but leave out the rest of that. No one wants to see it. If you're trying to inspire me to bring you onto, if this is your attitude, it's not going to work. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Right. And also we don't see what it says in the writing. So yeah. But be careful.
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you have to realize we've got like 90 seconds to review your personal statement. What do you want their takeaway to be? If it's, I don't want to be a nurse, I want to be a physician, just based off of that, it's not a good tone. It's not a good look. And it comes across super negative. And so with this being such an important element and wanting to inspire them to want to get to know you more, to have you on campus, to teach you medicine, to look over your secondary.
Yeah. And especially a lot of campuses are multidisciplinary now, where medical students are with PT students or with nursing students. And it's just, it may come off like you may be a little elitist. I don't know. Like, again, these are interpretations that are potential, not saying you are, Andrew, but just how it can be taken.
Super polarizing and not a good look. So, yeah.
Daniel asks, I'm a non-trad student having attended multiple schools for my undergrad, although with an upward trend. Am I a good applicant for an SMP? I've completed my pre-med prereqs with an upward trend. Daniel, not enough data here to answer your question. What are your grades? What are your GPAs? What do those trends look like? The multiple schools part, that doesn't tell us anything. So a potential good use for using Mapped, go put all of your information in, and you can, as part of a trial for Mapped Pro, or if you sign up for Mapped Pro, can chat with our advisors right inside of Mapped, and they can take a look at your data. Giuliano Would mentioning coming from a war-torn country be, quote, cliche in a personal statement? I don't know how it could be cliche. Like, that's as authentic as it gets. It's like, here's
Yeah,
who I am,
right.
where I'm from. Maybe how they're mentioning it, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I see all these words from applicants: cliche, unique. I want to be unique.
Mm-hmm.
I want to. There's all these catchwords that students come to the personal statement, come to the process of writing it, having in their mind. I don't want to be cliche, and I do want to be unique as examples. The point here is not worrying about whether you're unique or avoiding being cliche. It is being authentic. Be authentic with what your experience has been about. Courtney was talking about this a few minutes ago, and just this is the key to it. If you come from a war-torn country and this is a big reason why you immigrated to the U.S. and that this is part of your experience, then it's not cliche. It is you. That is you, who you are, and what you've done, and what has happened to you. Tell the story. Tell your story. I can 99.9% guarantee you that you are not going to be unique. There has these admissions committee members, especially if they've been on the admissions committee for a while, they've seen everything. They have seen everything you can imagine. They look at it, and so the chances of you being unique are pretty low. The chances of them coming across and saying, "Oh, this is so cliche. You come from a war-torn country." How many times have we heard that? That's not going to happen. They're going to be looking at you. Yeah, right. So just tell your story in the most the most authentic way that you can, and that's all they want. They want to try to get a sense of who you are and what you've been through.
Yeah.
Unless you're bagging on nurses, then
don't
leave that part out.
Leave that authentic part of yourself.
Yeah,
we don't need that level of granular detail.
Yeah,
Another personal statement question here is a timeliney personal statement. Okay, I had good momentum undergrad, but postgrad I had to step away to help my family, but have since hopped back on track. Timeline, we see lots of timeline essays. Courtney, is it a bad thing, or as long as you kind of know what's going on?
As long as I can follow the thought progression or the evolution arc. The thing that does concern me about this is, one, I don't want it to be an academic rundown in the timeline of telling me about that stuff. This is not the place for that. That is in another section of the application. It's not in your personal statement. And especially for non-trads, a lot of the times it's hard to edit and pare down. All I need to know, just stick to the prompt. You won't be able to include everything. It won't be cumulative, but I need to know what is motivating you to pursue becoming a physician and giving me a little bit of perspective. But a timeline is generally kind of helpful, or I need to at least have some perspective of it, where it kind of began, how it progressed, and now up to this point is probably going to be your ending. So it's not problematic.
Yeah. I want to ask a question that wasn't asked here, but it was asked somewhere else, and I forget where I saw the question. It was a question about some schools, and I think it's ASU as kind of the first one, where they basically let students take a class and then decide at the end if they want a grade. It's basically take the class. If you do well, great, I'll take the grade. If you don't do well, it kind of just disappears. You don't get a grade or whatever for the class. Is this a potential option for pre-med students if it's available for prereqs, especially? Will med schools know this? I don't know. Maybe this is too new to even have an understanding of.
I'd always take the grade, always, every time.
But if you go through the class. You're like, oh, I'm getting an F. Like, take the grade. Like, obviously, a student's not going to want an F. It's basically giving them the flexibility to withdraw from the class at the very end if they want to, which is historically, there's usually a drop period or a withdrawal period, but it's kind of removing that. I don't know. I personally don't like it. It kind of goes to everyone is an angel, everyone gets a trophy, everyone is perfect, and it's okay if you don't do well. There are no consequences, right? There are consequences in life, and I don't know. I think it's treating people too soft. But maybe I'm old curmudgeon now.
I've had a disgruntled look the whole time you've said that. I just like no.
Yeah.
No, I feel like that's pretty easy.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, no. It's not going to fly. It's not going to cover anything up. It's not going to add any value. It's do well.
Yeah, right.
Do well. Yeah.
If you're a pre-med student and you're worried about the grade you're making at the end of the class, the problem is not the grade. The problem is what's going on with you. What's happening that is making this even something that you're thinking about.
Yep.
You know, that's my bigger concern is, you know, you need to really start thinking about what am I doing and why am I doing this? And I need to get on track here, you know, and you know, so anyway.
Yeah. Just a reminder, if you would like us to tell you to not yell at nurses, you can come work with us one-on-one using the code PMOH to save some money. Go to medicalschoolhq.net and we'll tell you to be nice to nurses. All right. Here's an interesting question from Aliu. How many upper-level science classes or would you recommend for a non-traditional nursing student? Cumulative GPA 3.7, science GPA 3.8, 2 W's. Scott, those 2 W's goes right out the window. Can never get into med school. No, are you concerned about this GPA, or maybe there's a little nuance here with the nursing student aspect?
I'm not concerned with this GPA at all, and the 2 W's don't concern me at all. You know, that's not something that's going to be a big deal. So I think so. Upper level science classes, I think you want to have a few just to show what kind of work you can do in an upper level science classroom. If you are a nursing student, then you might want to tackle some of the upper level stuff, micro, for example, or immunology is always one that comes up with medical students as very helpful and that they took in undergrad. Micro is the same way. And anatomy and physiology, very, very good. And so, I think a few of those would be good, but there's a lot of students that, especially if they're non-science majors, they may not have any of that. And that doesn't necessarily put a red flag in their application, because for a lot of the MCAT schools, the only thing that's required is 2 semesters of biology. So, there's nothing beyond that required. So,
yeah. I think the only thing to be careful of is make sure that those prereqs are done and you're not relying on nursing prereqs that may not count as traditional.
What I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
You can't biology for nurses or physics for nurses is not going to fly. You have to do it under the actual science department. Yeah. So that's what I saw most commonly with nursing is it being designated under nursing class. And those adcoms aren't going to want them. And it does tend to affect your MCAT, which I've seen and heard a lot. So be careful.
I mean, taking those cheesy nursing classes, what I expect from
those nurses, they just make fun of you with acne. That's just terrible.
Yeah.
Just kidding. If anyone didn't understand the context of all of that,
please, we're joking.
We love you, nurses.
We're gonna get blacklisted, you guys.
We don't call it blacklisting anymore either. Come on. Cancel us all. Samuel, do we need a committee letter?
No.
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 All right. Easy. All right, let's end there before we have any more feet to remove from our mouths. Dr. Scott Wright, Courtney Lewis, if anyone wants to chat with you about their applications, about their pre-med path, any sort of questions they have, you can do so over at medicalschoolhq.net. Again, use that code PMOH for pre-med office hours. That's what we do here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Scott, you got a great message from a student this morning, I think, saying, hey, I appreciate meeting you for 30 minutes yesterday.
Yeah.
I learned a ton in just
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Love getting those messages from students.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And how we can help them and reassure them and all of that good stuff.
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes we crush them, but hopefully not bad. And we just reassure them that now is not the time, but maybe next time, next year.
Yeah.
Whatever. All right. All right, friends. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.